You just caught me picking out a book to review today, TheOdd1sOut's book sequel. But why are we talking about a book? Well, here on the daftpina channel, we dive into people, products, and ideas to help the audience with their creative endeavors. And learning from your mistakes is the key to improving in art, especially when it's some of my mistakes. Now, this review will really mainly focus on the sequel of the book, since I already did a review of the first one 2 years ago, but there will be a section where I compare the two, so stay tuned for that. This is TheOdd1sOut's book, Repeated Mistakes. But what isn't a mistake is today's sponsor, Ridge and Fillmore 9. This video is firstly sponsored by the Ridge wallet. It's sleek, light, and industrial. I don't like carry around cash, so having this non-folding small piece of metal in my pocket is quite nice. Not only does it hold up to 12 cards, but you can also have a money clip or slip to hold your cold hard cash if you wish to do so. Using coupon code daftpina, you get to have 10% off your order, and the people over at Ridge are so confident with their products that you have a 45-day period to test it out. Get it for your mom, dad, yourself, friend, or anyone else in your life that needs an RFID blocking card protector, and I'm currently using the turquoise one as it matches my look. And along with my look, let's jump into this book. Actually, no, it might be first better to find out who James is.
So let's get right into the Tumblr messages!
For those of you first being introduced to Robert James Rowison, he's better known online as TheOdd1sOut. The Arizona-born son of an author, James began as a comic artist, and then he decided to make animations. Over time, his art style changed and developed into this blob character. And his original character, or OC, does a great job at selling itself. It's a simple to draw character, so much so that with this nearly detailless design, it actually makes it easier for the audience to put themselves in his shoes when, well, he has a story to tell. I mean, would you have listened to him if he looked like this? Over time, he grew to about 10 million subscribers and helped foster a new animated community on the YouTube platform.
Apparently I was #relatable enough to connect with millions of people, and it took my channel to where it is today.
With that kind of money, power, and fame comes merchandising. No, I don't mean cool t-shirts and hats you can buy right now to support my channel. I mean plushies, costumes, board games, and even 2 books. Now, I have made videos in the past regarding his board game and first book, but as I said before, we should probably summarize the first book. Mainly since it came out 2 years ago, I mean, times change, people change, so let's dive on in. Also, do you want to see the drawing I did? Using the GAOMON PD2200, because I know you'll probably ask about in the comment section, I drew this fantastic masterpiece. Look at it. Look at the tablet. Look at the drawing. I did that with that. Isn't art amazing? Back when my review of his first book came out, I was actually on good terms and in contact with James, and part of my review was formed through his distaste regarding some aspects of his book. Of course, now since then, he has been more public with how he feels about it. He really disliked the title as it was actually pressured by his publishers, and he disliked a lot of the formatting that occurred in it. And one of my main issues with this was the fact that this actually had 8 stories repurposed from videos, which made me question why someone would actually buy it. Luckily, I was able to talk with one of the main beta readers of the book, Lauren Makes Art, to answer some of my questions. They gave me good insight regarding their background and how they came about James in general.
James reached out to me back when I started doing animated storytime videos. I'd known about his and other creators' channels and was honored when he helped me get in touch with the rest of the community at that time too.
Lauren has honors in English and creative writing, so they were best for the job. However, they were only there for the rewriting process. The decision to use the repurposed scripts fell into James himself.
While there were a few original stories in the book at the time it was being written, the majority were in fact video scripts, yes. A lot of the reworking process for those stories involved reshaping the text to better be understood without necessarily seeing the pictures. We wanted to make sure that someone reading one of the stories out loud without visuals still made for an entertaining listening experience.
Regarding the writing of the book, the videos will always be superior as James's comedic timing works better in animated form. and you can't really judge how someone might read your book, so some of your jokes might fall flat. Foreshadowing. And although I dislike how this book is mostly repurposed scripts, that doesn't negate the hard work that Lauren did translating it to print form, especially since they weren't part of the writing process as they were part of the rewriting process. And now's a good time to mention that they were only the rewriter for the first book, and now's a good time to thank them for speaking with me regarding their work on the first book. Thank you, Lauren, and have a good day. Which, on another note, is where Pantsu's Pajamas comes into the picture, or drawing, you can say. She's a good friend, and it was actually pretty daft of me, to not include her in the first video, as she worked on both of these books.
Well, for the first book, I was a colorist, yes. Every now and then, I would have to maybe line a couple of images, but it was definitely primarily, I was just brought on to color the images that were already set in place.
And for the first book, she actually had a tough time transitioning from computer to book due to the different coloring process.
James just had particular color palettes that he always used in his videos, and from there we were just told to, make the images look as nice as we could visually. But definitely now when I look back at that book and I look at the images, some of the saturation is just terrible. Some images did not translate well onto paper, and it just shows. It looked far better on a sci file or a program file or whatever, and sure, we did have people like Vops and Rush again who worked in like Photoshop or Clip Studio, and perhaps they might have tried taking that into account a little bit more, but like per instruction we just tried to use the color palettes that James has always had because we wanted to stay true, to what people were used to. And in some images that worked out well, and in others it was a bit of a flop.
So for both Rushlight Invader and Pantsu's Pajamas, the switch affected certain colors. And while they worked on the drawings of this whole thing, Sabrina Bowers designed the book, which between James and I, we agree it didn't turn out so well. And this was not a printing or budgeting issue, as talking with PJ, she told me about their experiences with it.
I don't believe there was too many budgeting issues that required us to necessarily make it so that there was any kind of like lack of color. They could print just about anything. It was just sort of easier for production to keep it moving forward without using backgrounds, but as some people also might have noticed, every now and then it was a little difficult to envision what images would and wouldn't look like without a background to supply it there, because a lot of images didn't have a border, and in certain cases, at least that I felt when I looked at the final project, it kind of worked against us a little bit visually. Some images floated in space too much, there was improper alignment, and that was something that I don't think we entirely thought up ahead of time as we were going ahead. I think we thought that the final product would be a lot greater than it was. It was still fairly good for what we got, but it was a first book, and we didn't exactly, I guess we didn't think too much ahead as far as how that would translate when it was actually printed on a page.
Of course, we could cross our arms so hard our elbows break, and point out every design mistake in a 40-minute video, but why? The author of this piece already acknowledged their mistakes, and going as far as joking about it for his next one.
I already fixed them for the second printing, but I'm just going to show you these mistakes now. But don't think of this as me pointing out the mistakes. Think of this as an exclusive sneak peek. Whoa!
But I can talk about a story that resonated with me in the book. And that story can be seen in Chapter 3, page 43. James talks about how he was born with an indented chest, and I was actually born with the same thing, a lot more severe. I had to get surgery in 2016 for it, and I even had 2 metal bars put in my ribcage, or else my ribcage would pierce my heart. Youch. The worst part about it was between 2016 and 2017, as I kept waking up in the middle of the night with searing pain, causing me to hate being awake. But in late 2019, it was time to take them out. The bars, not the ribs. And I was updating Twitter through the process. Follow me there for general updates about videos. I had the bar removal surgery in December, and although I now have the irrational fear my ribcage will collapse at any moment, I feel way better than I did before, and I even have 2 metal bars I can climb together. That's fun. I mean, what's better than 1? 2. Let's go look at the second book now. The first sequel is better in every way compared to the first book. Hands down, hit out of the ballpark, I ain't lying to you. As the second one actually uses the print medium far better. In fact, this book contains original stories and other extra things. Also, this being a review, it wouldn't be complete if there wasn't someone pointing out the very small details that the average person wouldn't notice, such as the fact that the second book is slightly taller, physically shorter, and the spine of the book is misaligned, so I hope that doesn't keep you up at night because it did for me. Also, unlike Tom Scott, who signed a 2-book deal, this wasn't the case with James.
I don't think there was a contract that he signed to make 2, because again, it was a year before we even saw so I don't think he was necessarily signed on to make a second one. I do think it was a little bit more by choice. Obviously, I do know that they've probably been like, hey, you know, another book, because why not?
With the extra time taken for the print media, the artists who came onto this project did a job 150% better than the original. Backgrounds improved as the specific people were dedicated to that, and James's part with drawing was lessened during production, so he can focus on the writing. However, some of the jokes in this book didn't land, like that transition. Chapter 12 is a humorful jest as James jokes about how his editor might take out some pages because of the Illuminati. Now, the context clues are there to see that the missing pages is part of the joke, but when making a book for kids, you might have to spend some extra time making sure you don't get some confused heads, like these people. Perhaps if you drew on page 174 a ripped out page, it would be clearer that he was joking. Along with chapter 4, it's a section for everyone, including Australians. Of course, people didn't get this joke and thought it was a printing issue. But what was a printing issue was this flipped image right here. But James mentioned this in a now deleted video. Of course, this wasn't in a vacuum, and the people who made the book actually reacted towards this landing of the jokes.
It is a shame that people didn't get the joke, and it definitely did upset us because we don't want people to think and spread around this idea that we put out something that wasn't finished or we messed something up. And that part is a very disappointing thing. We don't want thoughts of people perpetuating something that just isn't true. We don't want people spreading around something that isn't true. That part is genuinely a little heartbreaking, at least for me. But, you know, James knows what he put out. And as long as people don't think that we made, like, a bad product, that's all he necessarily will tune in on.
And the title of the video, being repeating mistakes, still applies. However, we have a new perspective on the matter. Although there are small issues here or there in printing, this wasn't out of malicious or even careless intent. In fact, as stated before, the second printing will fix a lot of the small mistakes. Even if these things were left in the book without a new batch, it's still a far superior product than the first one, due to the team behind it learning from their past mistakes. And even, in my previous review back in 2018, I recommended his book. Just like now, I would again for the new one. Currently priced at whatever is on screen because the number keeps changing, around 10 USD is a good price to pick this one up for. And if you want the first one to complete the collection, 9 USD I guess? 8? 9? Number? Also doubling the potential value of the second book, it was this close to getting a tour across America. This would be great for the people who aren't able to attend VidCon, so they can meet their favorite creator. Now, due to the pandemic at the time of this video, this has since been cancelled. So let's look at what could have been. Assuming he's taking flights around America, you start to think if the person who booked his tour actually hates him. He spends one day in California, only to ship off to Arizona, then back to California for 2 days officially, but luckily he gets a short break. Until hauling over to Oregon, then immediately after that heading to Washington. Oh jeez, that would have been some jet lag and elevation lag on his part. But that doesn't top the next thing I'm about to say. No. He gets to spend a whopping 50 days in Illinois, assuming he wants to stay there the whole time. Hey, are you staying in our fair state for an extended amount of time? Well, come on over and see our national treasures. Come visit the classic Chicago theater, the Mirror Bean, and even the scariest thing you can do in our state. Come on down. Then he would have to finish up his tour in New York. And if I was there, I'd go see a show on Broadway. I wonder if Cats is still playing. And hopefully when this pandemic ends, he gets to try this tour again.
I do know it was probably like a month back or so. Like the title of his book wasn't at all what he actually wanted it to be. That was a change that I think they suggested and all that other stuff. So these are still complaints that he definitely has that linger in the back of his mind. I don't think there's a resentment towards the work. He knows that things could have been a lot better, but he learned. And while, yes, even with learning, there is like certain things that are still out of control, James still did the best that he could. I still think that they're pretty great for what it is, and I'm really happy that regardless, people have been enjoying them. I think that's the best thing that I can see, is just people enjoying the things that we helped made.
Overall, a lot was learned from the previous book, and it actually fulfilled a more creative side to James we hadn't seen before. And although there are some repeated mistakes, such as issues with design and framing, it's nothing to sneeze at in regards to Me About to Cross My Arms. And a cool factoid regarding the video and, well, more specifically the first book, is that it actually means a lot more to a person that spoke in the video.
A lot of people don't actually have any idea of when I started working for James. They kind of just think he picked me up some point along the way to help him with videos, but the book was the very first thing that I ever did for James, period. Before I ever started working on videos, he assigned me to work on the very first book that the Odd Ones Out channel ever released.
This video wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for people like Lauren, Pants' Pajamas, and even Rushlight Invader. I appreciate them for taking time to speak with me in the video, and to give you insight in their process with the books. This video is also brought to you by Filmora9. If you're an up-and-coming channel and want to use a fantastic, easy-to-use, and free editing software, then this should be your first pick. If you're familiar with Premiere but don't want to pay premium prices, you'll love Filmora9. And who can forget its wonderful array of effects within transitions on items. Drop shadows and chroma keys are easy to use, but if that's not enough, you definitely need to check out Film Stocks where you can download even more packs. Go check it out today and get creating. Now, go do it. Right now. And a special thank you to my Patreon people. As you can see on screen, these lovely folks are helping support my content. For now, I'm gonna head off this dusty trail and go do something else. And while I'm away, you should comment below if you've read the book. See everyone another time, and don't forget to have a